Alright, so in section 5.4 we used inverse trig functions to solve real-world applications. So we're going to apply the same technique, but the idea is we are going to do it for all angles. Okay, guys? So let's just remember when we solve for an angle, we're doing our inverse, right? So we could say that this is our adjacent and this is hypotenuse, so that would be cosine. So we would have cosine of the angle equals 9 over 12, which then to solve for that angle we would do the inverse of that. So I'll just put arc cosine 9 twelfths. Okay, but that's just solving for that specific angle. So we are actually going to do all angles. Okay, so the idea is we are dealing with angles also that are acute and not easily one of our common angles on our unit circle. Okay, guys. So when we do this process, we need to keep in mind what quadrant it is in, and then we are doing all angles. Okay, all angles. This is very important, guys. All angles. So if we look at sine of theta equals 1/3, that means in our unit circle we are looking at the first quadrant, and we are looking at the second quadrant, right? So the idea is if we assign this angle alpha, that means this angle would be pi minus alpha. Does that make sense, guys? So if this angle is alpha, this one would be pi minus alpha. Alright, so what we have here is sine theta equals 1/3. So of course to solve for theta we would say arc sine of 1/3. And that's just one angle. That's just alpha. Okay, guys? So if we were to keep going around and around, what would we add to this to include all this angle that always ends up in quadrant 1? Well, that's just 2 pi, and we can go around as many times as we want, so times k, where k is an integer. Now that just covers our alpha here. So what we also need to keep in mind though is that we have this other angle here, which is pi minus. Now of course our alpha is actually this arc sine of 1/3, and again we go around and around and around. So plus 2 pi k. And that includes all of our angles in which sine of theta equals 1/3. Alright, let's do this again. But we're doing it with tangent. So if we think about this on the unit circle, where is tangent -2? Well, we have it in the second quadrant, and we have it in the third quadrant, or fourth quadrant, sorry guys. Alright, let's call this beta. So if this is beta, right, what are we doing to get to here? Well, all we're doing is we're adding pi each time. Do you guys see that, how we're adding pi? So in this case, because this is a reflection here, we're going to be able to make one single equation instead of the two like on the A. So we have tangent t equals -2. So if we solve for t, we get t equals arc tangent of -2. And then of course that is beta right here. So what are we doing each time here? We are adding pi, and we can add pi as many times, and we keep getting back to these. So pi k, where k is any integer. And then we're done with that one. Alright, so solve secant. Well, we want to go back to something we know. So let's do the inverse, or reciprocal, I mean. So that is cosine of x equals -3/5. Now we can picture this a little bit differently, because where is cosine negative? Well, it's negative in the second quadrant, 3/5, and it's negative in the third quadrant. So this is a reflection this way, so we are still going to have to make two equations for this. Okay, so let's say that this one here is our alpha. Okay, actually, hold on one second. Let's actually do it this way instead. Let's have this be our alpha. Because if that is our alpha, that means this one right here is negative alpha. Okay, so we're going to do, so there's a couple different equations that we could do, but this one would probably be the easiest. Always start from 0, okay guys? Now let's solve here. So to get x, we would say arc cosine of -3/5. Now let's start with this. That is our alpha. And what are we going to do each time with our alpha? We are going to add 2 pi k onto it. And then we need to include this one. So I'm going to do a separate equation. Now this is negative alpha. Well, our alpha was the arc cosine. So negative arc cosine -3/5, and then we keep going around and around and around, which is plus 2 pi k. And we are done with this lesson.